Welcome to Facing Evil, a cop's story of murder, mayhem, and the aftermath. This podcast is based upon the book of the same name, written by Scott J. Brown and Victoria M. Newman. All episodes are sponsored by the National Police Federal Credit Union. We mean police business. Learn more about the National Police Federal Credit Union at nationalpolicefcu.com. Content advisory. This podcast contains intense recreations of violent criminal behavior that may trigger those who have had previous trauma and disturb those who have not. Strong and offensive language is used throughout the podcast as well. Listener discretion is advised. I'm Ken Bader, your producer and host.
We treated it like it was practice. It was a great experience and practice for the big one that was yet to come. Although the outcome was totally different, it gave us an idea of what we were going to be doing and what we would go through for the big one to come.
That big one to come that Scott Brown was just talking about was, of course, his encounter with evil, Luis Bracamontes, on October 24th, 2014. We, and myself especially, are very, very proud to be launching Season 2 of Facing Evil, coming very shortly on May 11th, 2025. As a producer of this particular podcast, there was so much good content. And as with any compelling story, there is a lot of good content that just lands on the cutting room floor. Not because it isn't good, not because it isn't interesting, but it just messes with the flow of the story for our listeners, whether you're a police officer or just a supporter of police officers that is a true crime fan. This was one of those pieces that temporarily fell on that cutting room floor that I wanted to scoop up and use as a bonus episode. This is basically the free format reading of Chapter 1 of the book, Facing Evil, a cop's story of murder, mayhem, and the aftermath, where Scott talks about some of the incidents that happened as he became a law enforcement professional and before that date in 2014, of how he and his wife Liz, in essence, kind of got prepared for what was going to happen and got indoctrinated into the life of a law enforcement family. With Police Week coming up so soon, I thought that this particular bonus episode would be good to make available to remind people, especially us civilians like myself, what it's really like to be a law enforcement professional and to dive into that career. Here's Scott Brown.
Deputy Scott Brown. I was born in California. Went to a local high school here in Fair Oaks called Bella Vista. From there, I got a full-ride scholarship to Sacramento State University for football. Ended up kicking footballs there. While I was there, I got my degree in psychology with a minor in criminal justice. While I was doing that, though, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. Law enforcement was not even a blip on the radar. Pretty much picked the degree, actually, because there was a lot of girls in the major. Finished that up, had my degree, and I was actually bartending at Applebee's, serving drinks, and really didn't know what I wanted to do. At one point, I came across one of my football buddies who had just finished the academy and suggested to me, hey, you should become a deputy sheriff. So I said, all right, why not? I looked into it a little bit, did a very, very little research, and filled out an application online and turned it in. And they were trying to fill one of their night academies. So I went in, I did the written test, the oral test, and the physical test pretty much in one weekend, and got the notice I was in, and I think it was less than a month later, I was in the academy. Showing up, had no idea what I was doing. I remember the instructor yelling at me, and she was shorter than me by quite a bit, and I remember her looking up at me, just screaming at me, telling me how dirty my shoe was, that I had enough strings hanging off my uniform that she could have made a whole nother shirt. But I loved it. I know some people didn't, but I loved our academy. I was running, I was jumping, I was gunning, we were driving. The physical part was not too hard because I had just finished college football. The academics were not overly challenging because I was already in study mode from college. So it worked out really good for me. I ended up finishing up in the top 10. I got the top gun in the academy and got hired right out of the academy. From there, the way our department works is I went from there and got put in the jails. Finished that up. While I was there, took as many classes as I could. Became a jail training officer, member of the CERT team, part of the gang intel team. Really enjoyed it for the most part. Then my number came up, and I rotated out to patrol. While I was out there, finished my patrol training again, and ended up on graveyard shift, which for us is 10 at night till 8 in the morning. And that's where all the new guys start. And I loved it. I mean, there was, less admin out, less cars out. And frankly, nothing good happens after, frankly, midnight, especially on a weekday, right? So we were running and having a great time. And that's actually where I first met Danny, our shift. There was a team of us out there, and it was me and Danny, Daryl, and a couple other people. Daryl Amos, a couple other people. Got to know each other really well, had a great time. And then the budget went to crap in 2009, and our department fired a whole bunch of people, and based on seniority, had to roll some people back to the jail. Unfortunately, I was one of them. So was Daryl. Danny got to stay out. Daryl didn't spend any time in there. He ended up being able to go right back out again. Unfortunately, I had to spend right around 2 years there. That's when Danny and Daryl ended up partnering up. Had a great time. Ended up doing I don't know. They were both goofy and had a great time. I remember one of their stories, they were going over an overpass and they knew it had one of those live cameras on it. Middle of the night, no one around. And I remember they pulled it up on the website, pulled up, stopped, did kind of a, Chinese fire drill, right? Where they ran around the car and jumped back in the car and kept going. And it had enough of a delay that they were able to watch it on their phone and probably, imagine, sat there and just laughed their butts off. During that time, Danny picked Daryl to be his person. So when, if anything were to happen to him, he would be the one that would notify Susan, and that'll come into play a little bit later. So after I did that, or while I was in there, came back out after my time, went back to graveyards, had another partner, did a whole bunch of fun stuff. And that was where I ended up... several things. I had a suicidal guy that had his daughter. The call came out that there were shots fired, and I drove to the area, but I was waiting for my backup, and I see a guy down the street in the dark, can't really see what's going on, so I go check it out real quick while I'm waiting, and right as I pulled up and jump out of the car, dude fires off 2 rounds pretty much right at my feet. You can see him actually in the car camera ricochet off the ground. And then he starts yelling for me to kill him, and his 16-year-old daughter who's there with him is playing human shield and draped on him like a blanket, yelling, "Don't kill him, don't kill him." And he's yelling for me to kill him. And very tough position to be in, because had he decided to start shooting at me again, honestly, I don't know what I would have done, because, she was between me and him. And other than a lucky shot, I don't think I'd have been able to get him. Luckily, he ended up dropping the gun, and we were able to take him into custody and hopefully get him the help he needed. And then during that same time, in 2009, was when I got in a major accident. On Thanksgiving Day, just logged on, got out, holiday weekend, so the streets were empty and we were kind of on a skeleton crew. Went to a call at a local 7-Eleven, our stop and rob, where we got a silent robbery alarm. Turns out it was false. This guy always hit the button for robbery when it was actually just a petty theft, and, kind of made mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. So we showed up there. I was with Steve Murphy, one of our canine guys. We were sitting there 940'd afterwards, which is basically, the 2 cop cars sitting opposite directions, window to window, chatting it up. And we do that for safety purposes, so we can watch each other's back, not have to yell at each other. And then if we got to take off, we're not going to run into each other. So while we're there, we get a call of a 10851 in progress, which is the code for somebody stealing a car. And it's, I don't know, about 4 or 5 miles away. So we take off out of there like a bat out of hell, both trying to get to the call because we want to get there before the guy ends up taking the car and leaving the parking lot. I make the first light, I make the second light, and I look behind me and I don't see Murphy there. He must have gotten caught up at a light. But I know him and I know graveyards and I know he'd be behind me, so I kept going. And I'm driving southbound on College Oak. It's a street near one of our junior colleges. And as I'm coming up on the cross street of Myrtle, my light was green. And right when I entered the intersection, I see a flash of a car coming from my right. And I remember I had just enough time to say, oh, shit. And then jerk the wheel as hard as I could one direction, trying to miss the car. But I didn't, and I hit him right behind his driver's side pillar with the front right corner of my Crown Vic. Smashed all up, spun around, hit a retaining wall, accordioned up the car. It was all, airbag went off. By the time I kind of regained myself, I remember grabbing the radio and trying to say, a little traffic about a car accident. Battery, the radio was dead. All the electronics were dead in the car. And then I kind of started looking around and thought there was smoke in the car. So I get out of the car. Turns out it was just the powder from the airbag. They still don't know how I got out of the car. I guess the door was so bent they couldn't move it. But I guess me pushing it open maybe damaged it more, or I just had enough adrenaline going that I was able to get out. So I got out, and Murphy showed up about that time. He comes over to me, hey, are you all right? And I said, yeah, I think so. I'm kind of standing there and trying to assess the situation. The other car had slid and sheared off one of the low turn signals, and you could see a driver sitting in the driver's seat, and there was a guy kind of wandering around. Murph went over and talked to him, had him kind of stand on the opposite side of my patrol car, and then went back to go talk to the driver. And then while he was doing that, I kind of started feeling sore, so I sat down. And he came over to check on me, and while he did that, the passenger just started running, and he was beating feet to one of our local apartment complexes that is not law enforcement friendly. It's the kind of place you can go knock on pretty much anybody's door and yelling that the cops are chasing you, and they'll probably let you in and hide you from us. By the time units got there, that dude was long gone. I'm sure he had a warrant or weapon or drugs or whatever it was, but he saw that it was a cop car and didn't want to stick around. So I'm sitting there, and I knew the medics were coming. I knew I was going to get hauled off to the hospital, at least for a little bit. So I called Liz, who was not 9 months. I don't know. She was very pregnant with our first son at the time. And it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. So I call her. She wakes up a little groggy. I tell her, hey, hon, I've been in an accident. I'm okay. But, policies and all this other stuff, they're going to haul me out to the hospital. But I want to let you know I'm fine in case you get a phone call. And she said, are you sure? It's all good. I said, yeah, I'm all good. So she hung up, and turns out later she went right back to sleep. She was obviously not overly concerned, which is what I wanted. So the medic shows up, and they have me peel my shirt and other stuff. They wanted to cut some stuff off. I'm like, hey, I'm conscious. Let me just peel this off because uniforms are expensive. They threw me in the back of the medic and started hauling me to the hospital. Well, I'd driven that roads a million times, so I knew where we were based on looking out of the back of the car. And the new medic kept trying to give me an IV. I don't know why he thought I needed one, but he's the medical guy. I'm not, so I let him kind of try it. But after about the third attempt of him stabbing and missing, I said, dude, if you stab me with that again, I'm going to stab you in the face with it. And now whether I said that or I just think I said that, I can't remember now. But either way, he did not try again, so I got my point across one way or another. And when I got to the hospital, they apparently decided I didn't need that. Anyway, so they get me there, put me in the room. Unfortunately, it was a very full night. And so I had to go in the ER, the trauma bay with him. He's across the curtain from me, and he's sitting there whining. He's starting to come to because he was completely knocked out at the time after the accident. They go and get Liz. One of my buddies, Darren, goes and gets Liz from the house and drives her because, again, very pregnant. And as she's pulling up to the hospital, she sees like a million cop cars, and she's thinking, man, did Scott lie to me? Is it worse than I actually thought it was? But it was just her first taste of the brotherhood of law enforcement and just how one of us gets hurt and we all rally around, and that's just the way it is, right? And I had no idea. I was, they weren't in with me, but they were all kind of just out there waiting to see how I was based on my car, because my car was pretty messed up. The engine was pretty much in the passenger seat, and it was all folded up, but held together pretty good. So she gets in there and contacts me, and the dude's whining and crying across the way, and Liz was getting more and more pissed off. And at one point, she either said it or we talked about it later, but she was ready to go over there and crimp that dude's IV hose because she was done with him, right? He's calling for his mom and just, and he's the one that hit me. And so she was getting mad. And I asked to be moved out into the hallway or if we could go somewhere else. And they were very nice, but they were very full and they had nowhere else for me to go. So we had to kind of listen to that ding dong while he was rattling on. And although I am glad that, he didn't die or anything and that he was okay, I didn't have a lot of sympathy for his injuries at all. It turns out that he had a suspended license for DUI, 2 warrants for DUI, and that night he was over a 2.0, which is he was over almost 3 times the legal limit here in California for driving drunk. So that was one of Liz's first calls in the middle of the night to wake her up. And also, she was a champ. After the hospital, we ended up going back to the station house to get my car. And then because she was so pregnant, and even though I'd just been in an accident, I decided to be the one that drove us home. So I drove home. And as we were driving home, I remember we're on Interstate 80. And she said, pull over. I'm feeling sick. So we pulled over. She opens up the door, yaks out the window, and shuts the door and says, okay, I'm good. And shut the door, and we finished going home. And I remember laying in bed that night thinking about how blessed I was that I had such an amazing woman by my side. She did not once complain. She didn't ask for anything for herself. And, in her state, she was amazingly strong. And it wasn't the first time or the last time that she would prove that. And probably one of the biggest preps for the day that would change our lives was one of my shootings. Again, working that graveyard shift, and me and my partner were in our area, and we hear a call in the north area. There's air's cleared, which means nobody can talk except for priority traffic because they want to hold it for the officers that are in this situation. But we were too far away, and there was plenty of officers, so we didn't go to that, and we were kind of in the area. They broke it real quick to let us know the highway patrol was in a pursuit in our area, but they weren't asking for help, and they usually don't unless they need a perimeter or something because it's just the way they worked. But it was graveyards, and we were all running short, so we knew that we cover each other no matter what patch is on the sleeve. So we started heading in that general area. Well, by the time we get to Howe and Arden, which is it's kind of the heart of our area, the air's clears back up, the incident's over up north, and we hear CHP's pursuit is coming right at us, and that there's only a solo officer. So we got excited because we knew we were going to be able to get in on this thing, right? So we jump in and get behind it, and this thing's going through parking lots, through school parking lots. Like I said, luckily it's the middle of the night, so the schools are closed. It's us, CHP, and one of our park units. Eventually we get ahead of the park unit because their policy is to kind of drop back until they can bow out of it. At one point we're driving and we see the CHP officer go up to perform a pit maneuver, and just the way he was positioning himself, we knew it, but we couldn't communicate with him. They have a different radio frequency than we do, but he pulls up and pits the guy, spins around, and pretty much keeps going. It was pretty actually impressive. He was able to keep the car from stalling out and kept going. So we follow. They go down to a dead-end street. Bowling Green was the name of the street. And we can see a whole bunch of dust and everything else. And then right at the dead end, and we could see that the CHP officer had followed the suspect up onto some grass and eventually kind of hit his car, and they thought they had him stopped in a driveway. So I pulled up to where I thought I was far enough forward to keep him from getting out if he were to get his car started again. CHP officer's yelling at the suspect. My partner gets out and is approaching the driver's side of the car and breaks the window out and getting ready to pull the guy out the window. Guy gets the car started again and starts driving. Well, my partner's hand got hit by the driver's the door frame and got cut a little bit, drops his flashlight inside the car. And as this dude's literally scraping along a cinder block wall around our car to head out the other way, I got to look at him. Middle-aged dude, a little bit darker skinned, probably maybe Indian or something like that. His eyes, he was sweating and his eyes were so wide. I remember thinking, this guy is high as a kite and this is not going to end well. But we jump back in the car and do like a 1,000,000-point turn on this ghetto street because there's 1,000,000 cars and it's really narrow. And CHP was already on after him. And by the time we got turned around and headed back, there's 1,000,000 other cars in this thing. And we're way out of the pursuit per our policy. So we decided to go one street to the south We're like, well, if he bails, we'll be here for him, and maybe we'll catch him this way. Well, about the time we get in a good position, they voice that they're doing a felony vehicle stop on the guy, pretty much where he got pitted the first time by the CHP. So he's kind of just going in circles. So as we're approaching it, right when we get up there, guy gets his car started again, and now he is going up the street backwards. Well, apparently the CHP sergeant decided enough was enough, and he pretty much rams him head on. So now they're going up the street backwards, nose to nose. They get up to Bowling Green, the same street we almost ended the thing on before, somehow get turned and twisted around, and now they're both heading in the same direction back towards that cinder block wall, but their bumpers are connected. Crazy. All of a sudden they disconnect. The sergeant veers to the right and slams into the thickest palm tree I've ever seen. Center punches it. Just side note, he ends up being okay. He's a little banged up, but he ended up being all right. The suspect veers to the left and goes into a driveway, hits a parked car on his nose, and he has another parked car to his right. One of my partners comes up and basically punches his door with the front of his car, his driver's side door, and we pulled up behind him. So he's boxed in. We're like, okay, it's over. We got him now. Now it's just a matter of how we get him out of the car. So my partners are giving commands. We can hear the engines trying to turn over. I start to jump out of the driver's side. And as I'm doing that, I remember it dawned on me like, ooh, I'm between his car and mine. This is probably not a good spot to be. So as that happened, he got his car started and I see reverse lights. So I go diving out of the way. He ends up backing up, hitting our car. Well, my partner had gone around the front of our car and was in a major crossfire if it had gone that way. And we were yelling for him when I jumped out of the way to get out of the way. If that made any sense. And as soon as he turned that way towards Chris, we opened fire because he was about ready to run him over. Chris ends up diving out of the way, not getting hit by us or him, thank goodness. We ended up firing, I think it was 17 rounds. He got hit 3 times. The rest of them got completely sucked up by the car. He got hit in the shoulder, the hip, and the leg. The one in the leg actually broke his femur. He had no idea he'd been shot. He was so high, he had no clue. So he gets out, drive through some grass and back out on the street. And because of the way we were parked, we jumped back in our car and drove off after him. And now we're number 1 in the pursuit. So it goes down to the end of Bowling Green again, and his car dies. So we stop behind it. I jump out, point my gun. Partner gets out with shotgun, points his gun. Another unit comes up behind us. We're giving commands, and he's not listening. We can still hear the engine trying to turn over. So now we're starting to decide, well, okay, how do we get this guy out? He's not listening, right? We can't send in a dog because the car could go mobile, and that ain't good. What are some of our options? So he ends up getting the car started again, rolls forward, and then it dies again. So I sit down, we drive forward, and I came up and actually touched his bumper with my patrol car, and the plan, good or bad, that we'd come up with was if he got it going again, there was a cinder block wall again just ahead of us, so I was just going to drive him into the wall to stop this thing, because if it kept going, he was going to run somebody over. I had my partner to the right with the shotgun and another guy to my left with a rifle, and we had a shield, and we were ready to go. So it turns out that he didn't get it started again, thank goodness, because I'm not sure I would have been able to justify that. They approached the car with an arrest team with a shield and a taser, tase him through the window. First one doesn't work, doesn't even go off, so they have to switch and get a new one, tase him. It works, but now they got the problem of he's still in the car, still trying to start it, by the way. You can hear it clicking. The door's bent because our guy hit it, so we have to pry that thing open, and then once they get it open, he's still trying to start the car with a taser in him and a seatbelt on. And we still don't know why he ran necessarily. I mean, he was jumping curbs and driving crazy, but he could have been wanted, could have had a gun, could have been just killed somebody. We have no idea, right? So eventually we have to go up, cut the seatbelt off him, drag him out, cuff him up, and that's when we finally realized he'd been shot. Call for medics and everything else, right? Get him squared away, and our sergeant comes, gathers the 4 of us that shot, and puts us over in a driveway, says, don't talk about it. While they debate a whole bunch of things, including, whose jurisdiction it was, because it was started by the Highway Patrol. The shooting actually occurred in city SPD's jurisdiction, but the shooters were all county, so above my pay grade, but there's a lot of debate going on there. We eventually get hauled off to our North Central Division, where, we're waiting on lawyers and union reps and range masters and everything else. And one of the guys asked, "Hey, have you called your wife yet? Have you called Liz?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not supposed to talk about it." I took it very literally. And they all called me an idiot and said, "Call her. You can't tell her a lot of details, but call her and tell her you're okay so she doesn't hear from the wrong people," right? So I called her up and just said, "Hey, babe, I've been in a shooting. I'm okay. I can't really talk about it. It's going to be a long night, but I'm good." And she needed a little more reassurance on this one than the car accident, that I was okay. But eventually I convinced her, and then had to go through all this stuff, right? We talked a little bit there, but then, had to go through the interviews and be off for a couple days and all this other stuff. And it all went very well, and they all treated us good, but we treated it like it was practice. It was a great experience and practice for the big one that was yet to come. Although the outcome was totally different, it gave us an idea of what we were going to be doing and what we would go through for the big one to come.
This has been Facing Evil, a cop's story of murder, mayhem, and the aftermath. This podcast is based upon the book of the same name written by Scott J. Brown and Victoria M. Newman. We encourage listeners to purchase a copy of the book on Amazon.com, as well as to share, rate, and review this podcast. We also encourage listeners to visit our sponsor, the National Police Federal Credit Union, at nationalpolicefcu.com. If you're in law enforcement, do you feel comfortable trusting your finances with people that don't understand police officers? Of course not. Go to nationalpolicefcu.com today to check your eligibility. The National Police Federal Credit Union. We mean police business.